all those cool things because God is just, we cannot put God in a box. Am I right about that?
No, no,
Okay,
box is too small.
the box is too small. Now, Rochelle, I want to ask you, do you believe in the supernatural?
Yes, I do.
Okay, tell us why. Why do you believe in the supernatural? What happened?
So here's the real story. Here's the story of what was happening. I
Okay.
was born with a heart condition. Did not know about it. Doctors did not catch it until I was 19 years old.
Wow.
And this is something that they typically catch with kids that are like 3 or 4 or 5 years old. And
Okay.
so over time, they, you know, when they finally found out everything, the doctors asked like, "Hey, like, hadn't you seen like any kind of symptoms or anything like when you're younger?" And me and my parents were like, "No, no,
Yeah.
like we didn't see any warning signs. There was no red flags." So what happened is one day I'm going to school at one of the local community colleges. I'm eating
Mhm.
lunch and my heart's racing. I'm out of breath. Like I just finished running and I'm like, something's not right. I'm
Yeah.
eating the healthiest Subway sandwich. I'm eating the veggie sub, which is
Yeah.
the last time I ever ate a veggie sub from Subway.
Wow.
It's done. But I was eating it. It didn't feel good. So I went to class. I was taking one of those physical it was like a gym class. It was a
Yeah.
GPA boost. It was me staying in shape while I was in college. It wasn't really for any, going towards any major. It was just a get healthy class. So I go
Right.
to class that day and I saw that they had an obstacle course set up. And I told my teacher, I was like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna have to sit today out. I'm not feeling that great." She goes, "Okay, well, we'll go ahead and do something else and go ahead and, chill out, whatever." So I
Yeah.
go, I'm laying on a mat and I'm watching the rest of my classmates and they're doing like jumping jacks and they're running laps and they're doing,
Wow.
all like burpees and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm just like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're all just making me tired looking at you. So they go outside to run a couple laps and my teacher comes over to me and she's like, "Hey, um, do you know if you have like high blood pressure or, anything that might be causing," because she asked me what was wrong. I said, "I'm feeling dizzy. My heart's beating really fast." She was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, maybe you should get you go get your blood pressure checked." And
Mhm.
so I'm like, "Okay, yeah, maybe I should." Now this class is at noon. It's in the middle of the day because after this I would leave campus and go to work or go home.
Yeah.
So I go over to the building where the nurse's station is at.
Mhm.
And when I go in the building it's if you're looking bird's eye view at like a tire for, like a hubcap or something. Sometimes you have that round hub and then you have
Yeah.
the different spokes. So in this one, there is a round column in the middle of the building where you could all come out and then look down to the floors below you. And each
Yeah.
of the different spokes was a different wing. And so I went to the wing where the nurse's station was at, but the doors
Mhm.
were closed to the hallway. And I'm like, why are the doors closed? Like the nurse's station is
Yeah.
down here. And usually it's like in most public places, they leave like inside the building, they'll leave the doors open and it says like must remain unlocked during business hours or whatever. But the
Right.
doors were closed and I was used to the doors being open and the lights on, but the doors are closed and the lights are off in the hallway. But I see that down the hall, the door where the nurse's station is at, I see that there's a light shining out of the window that's on the door. It had one of those old school glass with the mesh, the wire mesh in the window, the
Yes.
whatever. So
Yes.
I see the light shining out of the window onto the floor, and I'm like, why are the doors closed? Whatever. I see the lights on. I'm going to the nurse's station. I need to get my blood pressure checked. So I
Right.
go. I walk in, and I remember hearing a talk from one of the other teachers talking about funding at public versus private universities, and they track everything because they want to get more state funding. And
Right.
so I remember thinking, oh, they track everything because I went to go sign in, and the last person who had signed in before me signed in at 11:32 for a band aid, and I'm like,
Wow.
band aid, really? Like you signed?
Right.
Whatever.
A Band-Aid and a paper cut.
Exactly. Like I'm bleeding, I'm dying out. I see this band-aid. So I went ahead and I signed in. It was about 12:25 or so. I sign in and I sit down in the chair waiting for the nurse to come back out. There's like a intake desk right there. And it's not a very small, I mean, it's not a very big office. It's maybe about 10 by 12 feet, not a very huge room.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and this lady comes walking out and she's like, "Hey, how can I help you? Well, how can I help you? What do you need?" And I said, "I don't feel good. I'm feeling really dizzy and everything. My teacher said I probably need to come and get my blood pressure checked. So
Mhm.
I guess I'm cheerful. But I put on the little sign in log. I put blood pressure check.
Yeah.
And so she comes over, she goes and she grabs the stethoscope, she grabs the cuff, like the old school, like she's gonna listen with the stethoscope on my arm while she puts the cuff on and she starts pumping. And so
Yeah.
she's looking at her watch, she's pumping and she's counting, and she's pumping and she's counting. And then she just stops looking at her watch, and then she just puts her hand down and she's standing there listening, and she's looking at the dial on the blood pressure cuff. And I'm like, great, this lady just stopped counting. Now she's gonna have to start all over again. And like, so I just want to get my blood pressure checked and get out of here. And so then she just stops, she takes the stethoscopes out, and she goes, have you ever gotten your heartbeat checked? And I'm looking at her like, no, I haven't got my heartbeat checked. Like we had to take like a general physical to be able to take the class. We had to take a physical with our doctor saying that we're in good health to even take the class, because of liabilities and stuff.
Right.
But I said, no, I've never got my heartbeat checked. She was like, okay, you need to go now. Or she's like, you need to go and get checked. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I guess I'll go after class or whatever. She's like, no, you need to go get your stuff and you need to go now. I'm like, okay, I will go now. So at the time, I was still dependent under my dad. So I give my dad a call because he worked on base right up the street from where the emergency room was at. And I said, hey, Dad, I'm at school. I'm headed to the emergency room. I wasn't feeling good. Nurse told me I need to go right now. So I go, me and my dad get there. We wait to be seen. Well, by the time we're finally seen, my heart rate is back to normal. I'm feeling fine. And they check me out. They're like, yeah, we don't hear anything. Nothing's wrong. She sounds healthy. She looks fine to us. And my dad's like, no, like my daughter would not come in here to the ER, if it wasn't something that was not a problem or something that was just normal.
Yeah.
So I go ahead. My dad's like, no, we need to figure out what's going on because we're not here for no reason. We don't come to the ER for no reason. So they finally like, oh, well, maybe I think we hear a little bit of something. We'll get you set up with the cardiologist or whatever. So my dad's like, okay, fine. So they set us up with the cardiology appointment. And within a few, maybe 2 weeks or so, I get in with the cardiologist. They're listening. They're like, could be maybe a heart murmur or something like that. Something minor. And with heart murmurs, I don't know if anybody is familiar with the way the anatomy works, but there's a flap, the two flaps on your heart. They're supposed to close all the way. And usually what happens is sometimes they don't close all the way. And so you have a little bit of a irregular heartbeat or something like that. And so they said, well, maybe that's what it is. Maybe she just hasn't really fully grown out of it, because with the military, you were in pediatrics up until the time you hit like 20, I think, like that. So, so the way but that's how they have their dependent to, adult clinics set up. So I remember they're like, okay, well, we'll run a couple tests. They ran a bunch of EKGs, ECGs, whatever, all the alphabet tests and everything. And couldn't really find anything. So then they said, look, we'll give you a heart monitor. This is how you use it. I wore it for about 2 weeks at first. And they said, about 2 weeks, you should be fine. We can get some readings from you. Well, nothing happened. Those 2 weeks, nothing happened. My heart didn't go funky or nothing like that. So they said, no, just keep it. And because we need to get some of these readings for what's going on as you catch them. So all of a sudden one day I start having a bunch of arrhythmia attacks, just like they're going off, I'm having one every couple of hours or everything. So I ended up wearing this heart monitor for almost a month. And the results, I'd send them in. They're still trying to figure out what's going on. So finally they go to do a catheterization. They say, you know what? We can't figure this out just by using ECGs or EKGs. We need to do a heart catheterization. We're going to give you some, they put a dye contrast in your blood. They take an X-ray and it shows you exactly what the layout is so they can see what's going on. So they decided to do that. And then when they finally saw the results from that, they're like, oh, we see clearly here what the problem is. Your right side of your heart is about 40% bigger than your left side of the heart.
Wow.
And they're like, wait a minute, like, and you sure you don't have any, you haven't ever felt like this? I'm like, no, I didn't start feeling like the arrhythmia attacks till I got older, when I was going to college and everything. I go skip ahead. I go have a whole lot more meetings and visits with the doctor. They finally figure it out. They go ahead and book me for my consultation to then be told that if I don't have surgery, I could be dead in 5 years, because the heart is a muscle. It will give out. They're like, you could not have the surgery and be fine, but you would be very weak, or you could die. And I'm like, oh, I'll take surgery for 500, Alex. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So they went ahead and got the surgery scheduled. I had surgery, had a good recovery, didn't have to worry about being on any kind of heart medication, because literally when they went back and looked at the heart, the main aorta and the main vein, the one that sends your blood out and sends your blood in, they were swapped. That's all they had to fix it. So it was a very tricky but very clean surgery when it came time for it. So
Good. Oh, thank God.
I recoup, and I said, you know what? I need to go back and find that nurse and tell her things, because she literally saved my life. So I go back to the school, and I wasn't going there anymore. I wasn't going to the school anymore, but I went back to go find the nurse. And one day I go in, and this lady comes out, this other Black woman comes out the back, and she goes, hey, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I'm looking for this nurse. I said, I did not catch her name, but I gave her a description. Don't laugh at my description, but she was like a cross between Paula Deen and Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
She had like the voice of Dolly Parton, but she had like the body type of Paula Deen. Very, very like Southern charm, hospitality kind of attitude or whatever. She had the big cottony kind of hair, like the ladies who use the Aquanet all the time. Like that's what she looked like. And that's what my memory I see is an older white woman. And the nurse, I'm telling the nurse, and the nurse is like, yeah, that doesn't sound familiar to me. And I'm looking at her like, yeah, this was just a couple months ago. Like not even like 3 or 4 months ago that this happened. And she goes, we don't have anybody that works here that looks like that description. And I'm like, are you sure you don't have anybody that is I'm doubling down.
I'm not crazy.
Was she filling in for somebody that day? Like, was somebody out sick or something? And the woman's like, okay, wait a minute. I said, no, I was here on this date at this time. And she goes, are you sure it was that day? Are you sure it was that time? I'm like, yes, because I went to the ER. So I have a record that I went to the hospital that day to the ER. So that would be the same day that the nurse told me that something was going on weird. So she pulls out the log. She looks at she's looking back. She had time. Apparently she had time because she was entertaining my conversation. So she goes to pull out her work. So she's like, I was at work that day. So I was a nurse on duty. And I'm like, wow. I didn't see you. I saw some other lady. She goes, so where's your name on here on the log? I said, it would be around 12:25, 12:30 because it was in the middle of my class that I had at noon.
Right.
And she goes, yeah, you're not on the log. And I look at the log and I see 11:32 Band-Aid.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. The next entry, 1:05 cough medicine or something like that.
Oh my!
My name was nowhere on the log. My sign-in was nowhere on the log. She flipped back and forth a couple days, both directions.
Yeah.
Nowhere on the log is the time of 12:25 and blood pressure check with my name on it.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, are you sure? And she's like, are you sure are you sure that was that day? I said, I'm sure. And I said, are you sure that you don't have anybody that looks like this? And she goes, ma'am, she goes, all of our nurses are Black or Hispanic. We have no white nurses. And I'm like, wow. Are you sure somebody was I'm still trying to make this make sense in my head.
Yeah.
And so she goes, yeah, we don't have anybody that's of that description that's white. That's that description. She goes, and wait, what time did you say this was at again? I said, it was at 12:25. She said, did you see on the door that we're closed every day from noon till 1?
Wow.
She goes, I was here that day. I went to lunch at noon. I lock the door and I turn off the light. I go to the end of the hall. I lock those doors and I turn off the hallway light. And I'm like, but I came in here, so you didn't lock the doors and you didn't turn off the light. And
right.
I'm like, wait a minute. She's like, you came down this hallway. And I'm like, yeah, I came down the hallway because the light was shining onto the floor. So I saw that somebody was in the office because that's where I needed to go. And we just sat at each other for like a good 30 seconds. And I was like, make it make sense. Like, lady, she's like, and this lady helped. I said, I don't know who this woman is. I said, but she was able to, I said, she identified something that was wrong with me that I could die coming from. I said, and you're telling me you have no white nurses at this school? And she's like, no, we have no white nurses at this school.
Wow.
And after we just sat there for a few minutes, I was like, I don't know what to tell you or myself right now.
Yeah.
She was like, me neither. And so we just kind of sat there for a minute, and I was like, well, you have a nice day, man. Let me get myself together and go. So it was very, and after I told my parents what
Wow.
happened, and they're like, are you serious? I was like, she doesn't work there. She doesn't exist. Like, this woman does not exist. So I tell people when they ask about, do you believe in angels and
Supernatural,
whatever, I'm like, yes, I do.